lesson, we are going to learn HTML, the language that forms the foundation of the website you see on the internet. HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language, and it's used to structure content like text, images, links, and buttons on your website. The good news is you don't need any prior experience. You don't need any prior programming experience to join this course. We will start from the basics and build step by step. So by the end of this tutorial, you will be able to create your own website with confidence. Let's get started. Now, for this course, we'll be using a web browser to view our web pages. That means we'll be using web browsers like Chrome, Mozilla Firefox, etc. We'll also be using Sublime Text as our code editor. That is where we edit and build our websites. A web browser like Chrome or Edge helps us to see how our website looks. We'll run the test on the website, while Sublime Text is where we write our HTML code. You can also use other editors like VS Code. Index.html is the default file that a browser or web server looks for when opening a website. So if you have your folder and you have your files, the web browser will first search for index.html and then display the content before any other file. So that is the default file name that you will use. Anywhere you see index.html, you know that that is the default or the first file the browser will load before any other file. It can be index.html, index.php, it just depends on the extension. But the word index, INDEX, is the first. That is the first the browser will search for. So I had an issue when I was starting. I was asking how will the browser identify that this is the beginning of the file, or this is the home page, or this is it. So the home page or whatever you want to be the first page should be in the index.html. First step is to create our folder. So if you come here and say new folder, call it first class. Inside first class, we can import this into VS Code. And then we can easily create a new HTML file, index.html. Now when we have this file, we should know that HTML is made up of tags and elements. And we can start by creating the basic tags. For example, if we have this, click on Lorem and tag. If you type Lorem and tag, it will generate demo text that you can use to fill demo text that you can use when developing a website. So you can say hello world, welcome to my page. Now let's try to show this on our page and see how it appears. This is our file, index.html, the file we just created. By the time you double click it, you will see it on your page. If you look at the URL, it's saying that this file is in my exam folder, htdocs class 2 first class index.html. So that is where the file we are working on is located. This is the URL. Once you open a website, ensure to look at the URL, especially when you want to be able to identify fraudulent websites. Okay, so now we are going to use HTML tags to make this even look final. So we'll go back to our code. First of all, we are going to introduce the H tag. We start with H1 and then we'll close it. To close HTML tag, it has to go like this. H1. That means you have closed it. It begins with H1 and then the closing slash This slash here means that the tag has been closed. You can see that the beginning does not have any slash, but the closure has a slash. Each HTML tag is enclosed in this bracket. And then we have to wrap this in a H2 tag, close it. And then from here, we can put this in a P tag and then save. To save your file, you have to click on Ctrl S, which is save, or Ctrl, or you can just click on save. So we are using VS Code, or you can use VS Code, or you can also use Sublime Text or Notepad. These are the basic editors you can use. We also have Chrome as a web browser. Here we'll test our code. So now look at the results of our code currently. So let's go back again. If we remove this, we have this. But when you do Control plus Z, press Control plus Z on your keyboard, you get back to this. So we have this tag now. Now we can decide to have another paragraph. And then we are going to add more tags to this so that we'll be able to understand the tags. We're going to add here, we are going to use italics. Make this word italics. And then when we go to refresh, you see that this place here is italics. So if you make this one italics, you can also put emphasis here. It's EM. Go back, we'll see emphasis. Now emphasis looks like italics, but when the reason why you should make sure you use italics where necessary and emphasis where necessary is when you are using a screen reader. When you are using a screen reader, it becomes difficult to differentiate. So the screen reader might stress this as italics and not emphasize on this. Okay. We can also use, we have from H1 to H6. So from H1, which is the largest, smaller, and then the size keeps decreasing. Now this is not just about the size. H1, when it comes to SEO, H1 is the major title of a website, so it should rank better than the rest. You can also use CSS. By the time we get to CSS, we'll now learn how we can use CSS to style any of this in such a way that this can actually be bigger than this. So the fact that H1 is bigger doesn't mean that you cannot style all these other ones. We are now going to talk about important HTML concepts that you use in almost every website you build. Take your time with this lesson. Elements are divided into two main types: block elements and content down. Inline elements are different. They only take up the space they need and stay on the same line with other content. Understanding the difference between inline and block elements helps you control how your web page is laid out. So it is important you understand the difference between HTML, inline elements, and block elements. Talk about loading a web page. Whenever you have changes to your HTML file, the browser does not update automatically. So when you are writing your HTML tags and then you decide to go to the web page to go and check what is happening, it will not reload by itself. So you have to refresh by yourself by holding down Control and pressing R, or clicking the refresh button on the web page, just reloading the page. This step is very important during development because it allows to quickly confirm that your code is working correctly. So it's important to do this so you'll be able to see your next changes. Let's talk about nesting. Nesting is just simply placing one HTML tag inside another. For example, if you have a div tag and then you have an anchor tag in between that you have opened and closed, or you have a paragraph tag in between that you have opened and closed, that is called nesting. You can also have a div tag, a paragraph tag, and inside that paragraph tag, you have an anchor tag. That is nesting. Next, let's look at HTML attributes. In the HTML element structure, we have attributes and values. These attributes help HTML to achieve a lot more. If not, HTML will be limited. So when you have an attribute, for example, you have an anchor tag, a tag, the a tag allows an attribute which is href. That href or hyperreference is an attribute, and the value could be google.com or whatever website you want to visit. Okay, now let's talk about hyperlinks. This hyperlinks or a tag or hyperreference tag allows us to visit pages on our website, even visit other websites entirely. So the moment you put a href google.com, you are visiting an entire website which is Google from your own website. So this hyper reference allows us to visit different types of websites from our page, or it allows us to visit pages in our website. That is what it does. We can also add images. Images have a specific tag that is used to display them. Image element starts with img, then it has source, which is the source of the image. The source of the image is src, is the attribute, and the value is the location of the image. We'll look into that. So we also talk about div. Div is a container just like a box where you can put elements inside and arrange them. You can have a div and put your tags inside, divide them into boxes. So for easier reading of your code, your HTML. You can also use section for this. So we can continue by creating other parts of HTML tags. So here we can add a division here. We can add a division. Okay, so here we can add a division. Replace this with div. There to close it. Now this division, we can add tags in between tags. We have a p, and this division, this p tags, this division we have a title. Okay, so we might need to use the basic, the most used HTML tags when developing websites these days, which are tables, lists, forms, and a few others. So let's go with lists. You can say here list of fruits, and we are going to create two lists. One is unordered list and another one is ordered list. So let's create an unordered list, which is UL. This UL, we close it and then start with LI. Mango. List item. So UL means unordered list, and then LI means list item. The list item, we have pawpaw, and then we are going to copy this now. We are going to create ordered list. So the difference between ordered list and unordered list, you have to change this one to OL. So unordered lists have bullet points, and then ordered lists are ordered by numbers. And that is it. So this is our website. Let's quickly add the logo.